Getting into anime is an entire process, and the only real reason for that is because as a new viewer, it's incredibly easy to judge other people for what they're watching, but the only reason you might think that is because when it comes to anime, nobody really starts off watching this. Chances are that you started off watching something that looked more like this.
Bruh.
Now how is it that the interests of the average anime viewer can change so much? How is it that we get from point A to point B? How quickly is it that a man picks up on all the different genres, tropes, and themes that are ever present in this medium of entertainment we've all grown to love? To help answer these questions and more, I'd like to introduce you to an idea, a realm, a place of mystery and a place of transformation, an abstraction known only to those lacking in shame. Welcome to the anime viewing curve. This is the anime viewing curve. Essentially, it's a graph depicting where all anime viewers start watching and where they end up watching. To give you the general idea of what it does, here's a more simplified version of the curve, the degenerate line. Now, both of these graphs function exactly the same, except in the degenerate line, instead of passing through beginner, casual viewer, and veteran, you go straight from upstanding citizen all the way to degenerate. And what's interesting about both versions is that you can drop off at any point, but no matter what you do, you can't move backwards. Now, we've already established that we can't start here with this kind of anime, so I should probably explain where exactly we do start on the curve. And it's at a rather small and steady incline right at the base titled the Shonen Precinct. The Shonen Precinct is by far the most populated section of the curve, as it's the starting point for most anime viewers. A viewer at this stage will probably find themselves watching the big name stuff: My Hero Academia, Demon Slayer, Naruto, debatably JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and other similar shows. The reason for this is because these shows make anime easy. You don't really have any hard to understand magic systems, no tsunderes, no magical girls, no harems, no questionable character dynamics, limited fan service, and an overall limited use of the things that I just listed that make themselves increasingly apparent the longer you watch. But what these shows do have is over-the-top fights, characters with easy motivations, uncomplex villains, and most importantly, the anime style. The biggest hurdle that comes with getting into anime is the stigma that all anime is cringy, borderline pornographic, and other things of a similar nature that are true of many shows, but severely played up to represent all shows. And this overshadows all the really good animes that could really appeal to anybody. What these starter shows, as we'll call them, do best is slowly introduce the quirks and more niched ideas that someone who's been watching for a long time is now jaded to. And the more of these shows you watch, the easier it's going to be to get into new shows, which is where you start to bridge the gap between beginner viewer and casual viewer. The incline on this portion of the curve being small enough to have gone without notice, but carrying the distinct difference of genre. Now at this bridge portion, things have started to normalize themselves. Character tropes have started to reappear, settings seem to show up more frequently, and you've just learned about this brand new show where a gamer such as yourself dies and gets transported to a fantasy world where they get to fight monsters, go on quests, and live in his adventurer. The main character is absolutely hilarious. They're a total pervert, right? The supporting cast is strange, but they all have their own personality, which is strange, funny, and endearing all at the same time. The show is incredibly unique. I'm sure that there's nothing else like this out there. Konosuba is nothing short of a transition show. And on paper, it sounds like something that really anybody could get into. A man and a goddess he outsmarts embark on a quest to go defeat the Devil King while meeting all sorts of quirky characters along the way. It sounds like a shonen battle anime, but then you're hit with masochists, penny thieves, lollies, and really just too much to process and enjoy at simple face value. This is because Konosuba belongs to two main genres, isekai and slice of life, and as genres they function fundamentally differently than shonen does, as they tend to be far less viewer-friendly. In the case of Konosuba, the overarching story has little influence on each episode, giving it a more episodic nature when compared to a show like Demon Slayer, which always furthers the story with each episode. While Demon Slayer's Tanjiro is actively searching for the main villain of his story, Konosuba's Kazuma is being fawned over by his harem of harlots because he's being strangled by a magical choker, and this might help. And he might bumble his way into a villain if he's lucky. To draw viewers in, Konosuba relies on what I previously called the anime style, and nowhere is a better showcased in Konosuba than in the characters. Kazuma is a complete pervert. That's his whole character. Aqua is an idiot who's powerful but doesn't quite know how to use her power. Darkness is a masochist, and Megumi likes explosions. There's literally nothing else to say about each one of these characters. They're all extremely one-note, and always default back onto that one note in any given situation. Now normally this would be a bad thing, but not for an anime that leans into the anime style. And that's because slice of life as a genre has a lot more room to behave like a weird little anime, while something like shonen needs to stick to more action-oriented and serious plots. For example, Kazuma hires a succubus, then accidentally tries to seduce Darkness. Or Megumin wants to use her explosion magic and mistakenly blows up a powerful demon's castle. The show has a chemistry that can really only be found and work in anime. And of course the show has moments that anybody could enjoy, ones that are less anime than others, the kind where the main theme starts playing as the characters work together to defeat a great villain, and then subsequently have to pay off their overwhelming debt because they just destroyed the town with the villain. The show knows how to get serious and keep itself grounded in normalcy enough for the average viewer, while also keeping its characters from straying too far from their quirks and near satirized versions of how we think an anime character would behave. The takeaway here is that to enjoy a show like this as a whole, you need at least some previous anime experience, because just the simple change into an anime-exclusive genre introduces too many tropes for a new viewer to really appreciate without thinking, what the f*** am I watching? Now you might notice that it's at this point the curve begins to move upwards towards the realm of casual viewer, and this is because of something I've mentioned previously, tropes. Tropes are everywhere, and by the time you're this far along on the curve, you should be familiar enough with them to call them out and even guess which ones you'll be seeing from the first episode of a show. At this point, a show that would most likely catch the attention of a casual viewer is something worth watching, is one that breaks down tropes and subverts expectations. And I don't think I've ever seen a show that breaks down tropes as much as it religiously abides by them is Ikigai. Watching this show is like watching the author say, no, no cake for me, and then shoving half a slice into their mouth. The show subverts expectations without really subverting them. Just within the first episode, we get introduced to the timid and love-struck main character Joro, his childhood best friend Himawari, the cool beauty Cosmos, some average anime camera angles, and literally everything else you would need to start up a generic harem anime. But as the episode goes on, everything is flipped on its head. Just as Himawari and the cool beauty Cosmos seem like they're about to confess their love for Joro, they instead confess their love for his best friend. Following that, Joro reveals he's actually not your average nice guy, but instead, just an asshole. Now there are 3 things to note about this twist. 1, it's fucking hilarious. 2, even after everything is flipped on its head, things don't really change all that much. Tropes stay tropey until the very last episode. And 3, it's impossible to find any of this funny have you not seen an anime as generic as Ikigai pretends to be. The thing about being a casual viewer is that you can watch nearly anything, and a lot of animes fall into a trap where their tropes end up making them kind of being the same after a while. The main character has an overpowered ability. Main character prefers to talk things out. Cute girl falls for gross perverted main character. 15 other girls fall for gross perverted main character. And the incredible amount of shows that use tropes like these are important for 2 reasons. 1, given that these tropes aren't inherently a bad thing, they can really shape the expectations for us as viewers. 2, they allow for a sort of anti-anime like Ikigai to pop into existence. And this show specifically derives comedy from 2 distinct places, the first being the constant bringing up and knocking down of tropes, and the following fourth wall break saying something like, "Character A believes she's in a romantic comedy," despite the fact that the show is a romantic comedy. And the second place being the early setup of long-running and reoccurring jokes, like the bench always being there whenever someone's about to say something extremely unpleasant to Joro. What makes this show worth noting as far as the viewing curve is concerned is that this show is too far out of the way for a new viewer to enjoy, just anime enough to be generically enjoyable, and disconnected enough from other shows to make itself distinct and appear separated from shows that actually are the sum of their writing tropes. Now from here you might notice that the curve enters a bit of a dark zone, and nobody really knows what happens in here, but when a viewer emerges, they'll find themselves at the peak and final plateau of the curve, the veteran sector. This is the section where anything goes. 1 minute, you're just chilling, catching up on some seasonal shows, and then BAM! There you are at 2:30 a.m. February 2nd, 2020, just watching hentai. Or maybe it's a show? Point is that as a viewer, you will eventually be so jaded to everything the anime has to offer, you'll find yourself watching something that looks pretty similar to Interspecies Reviewers. A show that's probably just about as far as you can go without crossing into actual hentai. The premise for the show is pretty simple. It's about a human and an elf who set out to review what it's like to fuck every different species there is. And it's completely uncensored if you choose to watch it that way. Now, I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory as to why somebody on this side of the curve probably wouldn't want to watch this show. And it's probably a little less clear as to why somebody on this side would be watching this show. Well, it's pretty simple actually. Despite this show being a representation of everything wrong with anime as a medium of entertainment, it's actually a decent watch. As a comedy show, its humor utilizes a mild degree of self-awareness and jokes written by a 13-year-old to generate laughs. It's good because it's a mix of somewhat witty humor and various wacky circumstances. It's like a shonen battle that uses a variety of abilities and settings to keep battles interesting, except instead of fighting, it's fucking. On top of that, due to the very nature of this section of the curve, the viewer in question probably won't care what they're watching. And because this show appeals to an incredibly specific type of viewer, it mainly finds its loyalty in those who don't need something to be stereotypically good to watch. And this is where we come full circle. Once you've taken a step on the line, you can't go back. You can't unsee hentai, and that's really the beauty of the anime viewing curve. You start off watching the big name safe anime. Through genre, you can learn a little bit more about what anime has to offer. Through tropes, you learn all the different good and bad parts of anime. And through the final plateau, you can watch hentai. And as a seasoned anime viewer myself, I wouldn't have it any other way. Thanks for watching. And hey, if you made it this far in the video, I just want you to know that I really appreciate you being here, and I would really love it if you would subscribe, because I'm going to be making some new content about 3 months from now. So if you're into this whole thing, you know, the whole anime analysis, anime video kind of thing, feel free to stick around, check out some of my other videos, and once again, thanks for watching.